let's get to making this 20 by 20 planter with a privacy fence and shelving out of 15 pickets to sell on Marketplace. I've got a cut list, so go ahead and pause and screenshot. I've also got a tools that I've used or some alternative tools that could be used. So I always like to start off with my table saw and ripping down all the pieces I need to use. So here I'm going to rip down 8 fence pickets to 1 3/4 of an inch. If you don't have a table saw, you can still do these projects as long as you have a circular saw. What you'll want to do is get a rip fence for your circular saw. Woodworks LA has a really great set of videos to show how he uses a circular saw instead of a table saw to do rip cuts on the fence pickets. If you haven't checked him out, definitely do. He's got a lot of really awesome videos and projects. There's also going to be one fence picket that you'll want to rip down at the end. You'll need it for your top trim if you want to add that on. There's also a small sliver that you'll need to add in for the base. Do that last, that way once you get those measurements, you could actually rip it down to size accordingly. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and hit my miter saw and get the rest of our long cuts done. So now that we're over here at my miter saw, I always like to start by trimming off the end of the fence pickets just because those usually aren't square ends. From here, I know that my ends are going to be square since I calibrated my miter saw. My miter saw stand also has a T-track system with it, so that way all I have to do is slide down my boards, set my stop block to the length I want, and then all my cuts are going to be at that consistent length. If you don't have a miter saw, use a circular saw with a square, so that way you could have straight cuts. Also, we're going to go ahead and ignore that watch stand. Alright, now that we have all of our cuts done, let's go ahead and start assembling. Grab 3 of your 19-inch sides and 2 of your 18-inch legs. Lay down some glue. I always recommend Type Bond 3. It's a waterproof exterior rated glue. I'm using an 18 gauge nail gun. If you don't have a nail gun, you could use a hammer with 2 penny nails, or you could do a drill and use number 8 1-inch exterior rated screws. Just make sure if you're using a drill that you go ahead and pre-drill your holes so that way you don't split the cedar. And just keep in mind that the nails and screw are just really there as a clamp until the wood glue dries. Once that wood glue dries, the screws and the nails won't really matter. So be pretty liberal when you're putting down your wood glue and make sure it gets a good spread. After everything is nailed or screwed together, go ahead and wipe off your excess glue so that way it doesn't leave weird orange marks on your piece. So this is going to be the next part. This is where you add one of those 60-inch pieces for the legs. It's a little tough to do on this end, but what you're going to want to do is put on your first piece, make sure it's flush on the bottom with that other leg. So the leg that has the overhang is going to be on the ground, so just make sure those 2 ends are flush. And then from there, go ahead and drive in some nails. This part's not as hard. You're going to do this twice, so just make sure you mirror each end. So this part will take a little bit more pre-planning and a lot of visualization. I had to put up a couple pieces just that way I could visualize it beforehand. And this is also another end where it gets a little hard, so I had to do the first one before I started to record to show you all this one. So what I did is I took one of the legs, made it flush on the top, so then that way when I put on the 60-inch leg, I can make sure that it was at the right spot to be flush on all 4 sides. As I've already said, Woodworks LA has a lot of really great videos. One of the things he does is he actually does a measurement for the length of the side and then puts a nail down so that way he knows exactly how far down that longer piece is. He's done it on a couple of his videos where he's making either a trellis or a privacy fence. It's a really great way to do it. I just didn't feel like doing it that way this time. But I would highly recommend that measure the length of all 3 boards and see how tall that is. and put in a nail just that way when you go to slide in that longer piece, it'll just catch right on the edge, and you know exactly how tall it should be and where it should go. And now that we have 2 of our sides done, let's go ahead and do the other 2 sides. So go ahead and lay those 2 sides vertically, put down some wood glue, and then take your 17 3/4 inch pieces and get those nailed in. Make sure everything is aligned properly. And once you're done with one side, go ahead and flip it over, do it all over again. And from there, we're going to go ahead and finish this piece off. So let's go ahead and get our trim added. What I did for this one is I actually took the trim and I used my jigsaw to cut out the notch. Just place the trim up against the sides, mark where it needs to get cut, and then lay down some wood glue and go ahead and get that secured into the top piece. I used a jigsaw. You could use a multi-tool, you could use a handsaw. Don't be tools be your limiting factor in what you could build. There's a lot of different ways that all these items can be built. Now that I got the trim done, I realized I forgot to show y'all how to attach the lattices. So all I did was I took a shelf piece, put it up against one of that first lattice, and I put the next one right on top, making sure everything was level. And I kept doing that for all 36 pieces. So we're at the finish line. Just to recap, we took 15 fence pickets to make a 20 by 20 inch planter. Has a privacy fence and some shelves to stash some extra items. You could use it to put in either a planter, you could use it inside and stash your blankets. I'm selling this on Marketplace for $220 out of 15 fence pickets. If you have any questions, let me know.